Hey everybody, what's up? If you're listening to this, then you are listening to Trebled Folks with Sid and Kit Carson of Guitar Fight from Fooly Cooley, Starlight Excellent, and I should probably let you do this part.
That's all right. It's all right. You probably introduced myself better than I could have. Yeah, Kit Carson here, y'all, from Starlight Excellent, Guitar Fight from Fooly Cooley, and probably some other nerdy math rock bands you might have listened to at some point. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and of course me, I'm the main brains behind the Serpent's Ritual, and that's pretty much all that I do musically. But so we actually met in middle school, I believe.
Yeah, like sixth, seventh grade, mutual friends,
Yeah.
everyone throwing spaghetti at each other. At one point, your spaghetti hit my back, I'm sure,
Yeah, you turned around
theoretically.
and our eyeballs met, and we didn't know it
Yeah.
in that moment, but
Yeah,
one day
one
something was gonna
day.
happen
One
there.
day.
Later on, we ended up in marching band together, and that was I think at least for me that was when music kind of became more real to me.
Hmm.
For a big portion of my life, there were the musicians, and then there was everybody else. And
Right.
then when marching band happened, I realized anybody could be a musician, and that was a pretty serene day for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think marching band for me as well is kind of a starting point for everything that's happened. I can't credit marching band entirely from to where I've gotten now, but I would say for sure that at some point it just kind of hit me like I don't have to play the notes on the page. I can make my own notes. I can make my own page. You know what I mean?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
You played clarinet, didn't you?
I did, and I was a mean clarinet player too. I normally was the first member of the second strain.
That's pretty good.
All
That's
right,
pretty
I
damn
was
good.
good. I was good.
I was a trumpet player. I was always like right in the middle of like average trumpet players. I was neither good nor was I bad.
Just there.
I was just there
Fuck
along for
yeah.
the ride. So we went on our kind of separate journeys after that musically. You want to get into yours a bit? How everything took off for you?
Yeah, sure. I'll start it out. So about my senior year of high school. Actually, we'll go back to junior year. My junior year of high school was when I joined my first band. I was a clarinet player, but when I turned 16, I had started to learn drums, and I picked it up pretty quick. I mean, just having a general idea of how rhythm worked already. It wasn't that complex of an idea to me. It was more of just, muscle memory, making your body do what, your body needed to do to play the instrument. So the concept of music was there, and picked it up quick, got pretty decent pretty fast. Had an opportunity to join a folk band, which I did, called A Few Chosen. It was a Christian folk band.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, we played at a talent show and something called the Panoply, which was just an event where all the art, humanities studies did their own kind of, celebrations of the different arts.
Was that outdoors one?
It was outdoors, it was indoors, it was in the auditorium, it was in the
Yeah.
cafeteria. Everyone just had kind of like a different station, and we were like the music station, right? Um, but we played there, and we played at a farm a couple of times, and actually got paid like pretty handsomely to be like 16 years old and have like really mid music at
You
best.
make like $40, and it's like, oh damn.
No, we made like $300.
Oh shit.
It was nuts, and we were a three piece. So I mean, like, I just made $100 from fucking playing drums. But that was my first band, and as bands do, it dissolved, and we moved on. We all went our separate ways. And about the end of that project, the folk project that is, If You Chosen, I had started to listen to a lot of Midwest emo, and I'd started to get into punk.
What
And
kind of
I,
bands?
man, all the bands, any Midwest emo band you could think of, I listened to at the time. Canceled, not canceled. I listened to all of them. I would say probably the band that kicked it off for me was Remo Drive with their debut album, Greatest Hits. Yeah, the pink one. For those of you who don't know the name of the album, but that album kind of kickstarted things, and then it was just progressive and progressive to the point where I was listening to more underground shit, like bands with like 60 monthly listeners, and I'd always loved metal too, so I always had a healthy dose of metal in my diet. Um, but this kind of led me to the attraction of math rock and genres that used a lot more like odd time signatures, a lot of open tunings on your stringed instruments, and another band at our school called Good Parenting had just broken up at the time. And a couple members from that band started their own thing, needed a drummer, and then boom, that's how my current project and biggest project, Guitar Fight from Fooly Cooley, was formed.
That's Guitar Fight, baby.
That's Guitar Fight, baby. And from there, our senior year of high school, we released a self-recorded EP that Ryan recorded called Alpha Omega Murphy. We had a blast. We played some local shows. It normally sucked. Like, we were normally opening up for, like, fucking cover bands for, like, Led Zeppelin or something. Ooh. Of, like, 40-year-olds, right? But it was still fun. We still had fun, and our friends all got to come out and beat the shit out of each other on a Friday or Saturday night. So, like, even though it was the least profitable time, the least, the time where we had the least draw and following, like, it was a very fun time, a time that I appreciate. And then we ended up getting a record deal from a defunct record label, now defunct, called Third Row Records. A band called Origami Angel was on tour with another band called Commander Salamander, and we had covered a Commander Salamander song called Pamela. We put it on Instagram story. They saw it. They listened to our EP, Alpha Omega Murphy, listened to it, I guess loved it or liked it or whatever, enough to let their record label, who was Third Row Records at the time, know, like, hey, this band is pretty freaking sweet. That's how we got signed. That's how we got our first merch drop of cassette tapes, hoodies, etc. That's how, the Twitterscape kind of started acknowledging our existence. And as time went on, our senior year, the reality of booking our first tour that summer became, a thing. And before you know it, we went on our first tour, and it was great. I totaled my car in Mahwah, New Jersey.
Was that that you were telling me with the deer?
Yeah, I hit a deer in Mahwah, New Jersey. Fucking, that place is cursed. Would never go back. Don't like New Jersey. To anyone listening to the podcast from New Jersey, if you're out there,
fuck you.
Get out. Fuck you or get out. One of the two. Yeah, so that tour, kind of kickstarted our careers, really. And from there, we made connections. We went on more tours. We played more shows. Our monthly listeners started to shoot up. And then we recorded our debut album, Soak. And then once we recorded that in Florida with Lon Bashiri, we released it. People loved it. We made $1,000 in Bandcamp donations on the first night. That night that we dropped it, we had over $1,000 of just people buying the album. That's how hype people was. That's not a flex of like, oh, we made money, because that probably just paid our rent that month, right? Yeah. But more importantly, it's just to show, like, yeah, people were excited. These fucking kids making this weird ass Midwest emo aggressive, music. People were pumped. And from there, we've went on hiatus, and we've gotten back together. We've released our newest EP, Drought, and that leads us to you. I'll let you take it from there. That's pretty much it with my musical endeavors. We've had some side tracks too, like Yao Guai and Starlight Excellent, which we could talk about later, but I don't want to get too much deeper into anything. That's pretty much my backstory wrapped up real quick.
Wow. Well, I actually got a couple questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind. So what does being signed entail? What do you get from that?
So I use signed in a very loose way. Our scene is collectively known, pretty much known as a DIY scene, do it yourself, right? So that kind of implies that there's not a lot of contracts, right? There's not a lot of official paperwork going on with signings, or even shows for that matter, or tours.
Not a lot of help.
It's not a lot of help. Well, I won't even say there's not a lot of help. I think that the help's there. It's more so just that everything is verbal. It's just, we agree to do this. It's as simple as saying, hey, you want to be on my record label? Yes. Okay, let's do this. Okay. And then boom. That's kind of how the signings were. It wasn't like, they showed up on a, horse and carriage with a pen and quill and asked us to sign their,
Dear ye, yeah. Whatever the fuck they said.
As sick as that would have been, that wasn't the case. It was more so just they messaged us on Twitter, and that kind of, that started it off. That was the origin story of our, career, really. And as far as what it entails, it's more so just, you need merch? Okay, how much merch you want? Well, we can front you this much money, and we can make you this much. We'll take 40%, you'll take 60% of all the profits, and we'll ship it out for you. You want a couple copies yourself? Okay, we'll send you a couple of copies. Oh, you want to go on a tour? Well, maybe we can ask around. We might have some friends in other bands that are going on tours, or friends with other record labels that might have bands going on tours. And, it's more so just a... Networking. Yeah, it's like having someone who has way more connections than you do, and they do a lot of the networking for you. and that's pretty much it. It's not as mystical as a lot of people think it is.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. You hear a lot about either it's very mystical or or it's predatory in some sort of way. But that actually sounds quite nice, and to a certain extent. What about that first night on Bandcamp where you made $1,000? What was that rush like? Where
It
you
was nuts.
felt like a king or something?
Yeah, no, it was absolutely nuts because whenever we released Alpha Omega Murphy, which was, our first release and it was the release before our album Soak, nothing happened. We had maybe 20 monthly listeners. That was our homies. I think after playing some shows and stuff, we might have peaked out at like 100 or 150. That was kind of our plateau. And then, obviously when we got signed and things before Soak came out, we got up to like 1,000. Like people started pouring in, and maybe 1,000 to 2,000 monthly listeners. But even then, it was just like that's really cool, but that's not enough, to really do anything for you at that point. That's just it looks cool and you're proud of it, but there's nothing substantial that comes. When Soak dropped, all of our hard work, this was 2 years after we had released Alpha Omega Murphy, a long time. A lot of life happened in those 2 years. And we'd worked really hard. We'd saved up our money to go and record. It was our first time recording in a studio, It was really scary. But the fact that 2 years later, we doubled, tripled, quadrupled our 2,000 monthly listeners that, we had sustained for like 2 years in a night was nuts. That we went from like, just a band that some people liked and talked about to a band that people were like, oh shit. Like the big bands we were looking up to were like, dog. You know what I mean?
Wow. What a feeling that
yeah,
must be.
it was a feeling, and it changed the game for us. And that night, like, it's probably one of the best nights of my life. I couldn't tell you just about anything about it now because, we got so drunk that, we couldn't remember half of what happened. But I just remember feeling like you said, top of the world. Felt like a king. Felt like all the pain that we had gone through to get that release out was worth it. And even if it didn't feel the same the next day or the day after that, it didn't really matter because that night, when it dropped, that's how it felt,
Mm-hmm.
So
I hope to feel that someday in some regard, which I guess kind of gets us to my journey in music, which is a lot less nice and a lot more just internal stuff. Around sophomore year, I picked up the guitar and really started playing that. I learned a couple Megadeth riffs, thought I was hot shit because I didn't really know anybody else that played guitar. Found out pretty quickly that I wasn't. At that point, I really just wanted people to jam with.
Mm-hmm.
And all my friends were getting into bands and stuff, and that made me really jealous and really just kind of like, man, I don't have anything. So I figured I would just do it all myself. And so on my iPhone, I made my first 2 albums, Silver Colossus and Ritual Stars, which are absolutely terrible. I would not recommend anybody listen to them unless you like really want to. After that, nothing really happened. I ended up putting my stuff on Spotify. I got like 2 monthly listeners for like a year or two. One of those was probably me at that point. I don't know. Around that time, I realized I'm just going to have to keep doing it. I met my personal musical hero, Devin Townsend, at a concert. He told me just keep doing it. You'll find your voice, and that's been my mantra ever since. I had a laptop that I recorded Anatomical Bridge on. I used all freeware, cheap plugins. For the years after high school, I mostly just made music by myself. Up until recently, I never had anybody to ever collaborate with on anything. I just recently finished my last album, Brother Machine, last month. Early released it. Sitting at 17 monthly listeners, which is like a godsend for me. I'm like, dude,
criminal.
Fuck yeah, it's criminal.
Because it rocks, by the way. Just everyone listening, it rocks.
Yeah, it was really hard there for a while doing this, and like, of course, 2 monthly listeners. No one is ever gonna talk about it.
Right.
No one's ever gonna be like, hey, this kid recording on his iPhone's like that's pretty cool shit. But I just kind of learned to just kind of get over all that. And where my dream used to be world domination, now I just kind of take like if I can survive off of it, that's really my dream in any sort of way. And then as you said, we regrouped December of last year.
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
gas station.
Yes,
You're
in a
walking
gas
around with
station at
your
Love's.
Bush Light.
Yeah,
I
I
had
think
like
I
a
had a
Red
24
Bull.
pack.
Yeah. And you were like, "What's up, dude?" And I was like, "Holy shit! I
Yeah.
hadn't seen you since high school. It was fucking awesome."
Yeah, I thought you hated me in that interaction. Like
Really?
you were so nice, but it's like I was just like, man, he's probably on his way to work because I'd heard you would like work nights or something like that. So I
Yeah.
was like, dude's probably on his way to work or just got off. Like, he probably want to see me, and I'm, with my jolly 24 pack, like about to tear it up that night.
No, I'm
But it
sorry
was
if
a
I gave
pleasure.
off that impression.
No,
Man.
no. I was just, I mean, I was probably already drunk a little bit, so that probably
Let's go
had
back for
something to
round
do
two.
with it.
You listened to my penultimate album at the time of recording this, Anatomical Bridge, and invited me to do vocals on you wanna talk about it? Talk about
Yeah,
Yao
yeah.
Guai?
So, this was okay. Let's just go back for just a second. About a year and some change, I moved out of the house that I had lived at with my bandmates in Guitar Fight, which kind of triggered a hiatus of sorts. I became a firefighter, which took a lot of time to do that. That was a lot of training and then getting used to the job. So a lot of things stopped Guitar Fight from existing. And whenever I had reached out to you at that time, Guitar Fight was still not necessarily back. We were still kind of on hiatus. We all had it in our heads that we were probably going to get back together.
Guitar Fight shall return.
Yeah, we all kind of had the general idea, but it wasn't set in stone. And I just, after a year of not doing music, not doing Guitar Fight, not writing or playing, because I've been busy with my work, as I'd mentioned, you just get bored and you start getting those creative urges. And even though I didn't know what I was going to write, I had to write something.
Definitely.
And that is where my, I guess our side project, Yao Guai, started. And I knew when I was writing it, had the post-hardcore elements where it was going to be, fun and mathy and have some cool choruses. But I knew that I needed something heavier. And I knew that you made music. And I'd listened to it in high school, and I did think it kind of sucked in high school. But
the truth comes out.
and then the truth in high school, I was just like, man, I don't know what the fuck's going on here.
What
But
the fuck this guy's doing?
in high school, definitely we were all way more competitive. Like that's when I really cared about monthly listeners. That's when I really cared about who was on top and who was on bottom. That's whenever I was insecure about my musical journey. So if I saw someone else and thought they were doing worse than me, I didn't try to bring them up. I was just like, haha. You know what I mean? And I'm going to attribute that to being a young, dumb kid, egotistical, young, dumb kid. But that's the past. Things have changed
See,
a lot
I get that
then.
completely, man, because I went through those same exact emotions just from the opposite end of the spectrum.
Right.
Being that
right.
dude on the very bottom and just being like,
Well, and then everyone you see up top's like, man, you don't fucking deserve that. Like, you suck. This band sucks. And why
Yeah.
do you have 100, 200, whatever, 300, 400, 500? Just, no matter what the number, if it was more than yours, I was insecure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't matter. Unless it was a band I already looked up to who I knew deserved it. It was, weird time. But yeah, I knew I needed someone heavier, and I'd listened to Anatomical Bridge. And I think when I saw you at that gas station was kind of when I had in my head, like, well, maybe I'll give that a shot. Because finding a heavy vocalist in Tennessee is not very easy.
not at all, yeah.
Really in Tennessee in general, unless you live like Nashville. And really, Murfreesboro seems to be kind of the hot spot. Murfreesboro and Knoxville. And even then, like, good heavy vocalists are like good clean singers. They're a diamond in the rough, right?
Yeah.
And when I listened to Anatomical Bridge, like, I was like, this is good. Like, I don't know if it's going to fit yet. But, like, I knew I wanted to give it a shot. And I knew that I liked you. And that kind of triggered it. I asked you. And since then, we have created a whole EP together relatively.
Yeah.
Almost finished, at least. And, that's triggered everything else that started since then. So,
Yeah, speaking of everything else that started since then, so around the time that we started hanging out again, I got to meet the chaps from Guitar Fight from Fooly
Yes.
Cooley.
yes.
And after a couple months of just hanging out, knowing each other, it was like the invitation was extended to me to play bass and Guitar Fight. Now that's not in replacement necessarily, as it is just upsizing the band, I guess would be the correct term.
Right,
to
party
use there.
sized increase. Party size increased.
You acquired the wizard.
Yes, exactly. We have our mage now.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. And yeah, Yao Guai, I feel like did kind of trigger everything that's happened because Guitar Fight started hanging out again for Yao Guai, and then we're like, maybe we should give Guitar Fight a shot. And then we loved hanging out with you, and then it's maybe we should get a bass player. So it's all just kind of progressive,
Yeah.
right? Yao Guai was kind of like the trigger for everything that's happened since then, and everything that's happened since then has been awesome. As far as you and joining Guitar Fight, like Guitar Fight just needed a change. We all wanted to get back together. But I don't think any of us really wanted it to be how it was, because even though I'd say Guitar Fight is a semi-successful, Midwest emo band or emo core, whatever the kids want to call us, it's not as glamorous as you'd think. And playing live shows was hard, with 3 people, Yuri playing mathy riffs, we're anxious every night. Yuri's screaming his voice out on tour, and it's hard. It was hard shit to perform. Whenever, we kind of realized, like, okay, maybe you don't have to scream and play guitar. It kind of changed things, and then we had the opportunity to add you to the band, so a lot of that load is now taken off of Yuri, which means our stage presence changes, which means the shows can be more enjoyable because everyone can just kind of bounce around more, jump around more.
Yeah.
It was really just about changing the stage presence, changing the vibe, taking the pressure off everyone just a little bit more, because I think this go-around we want Guitar Fight to be fun. More fun than it was, after the hiatus that we took. Because if it was that fun, we wouldn't have gone on hiatus, right?
Yeah.
So I'm super excited for the change, and I'm sure you're excited too to
Oh,
be
yeah.
involved.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause,
No
we're
shit.
pumped. We're
No
pumped.
shit, dude. I fucking cried that night. I mean, of course, not in front of everybody.
Right, you jarred
But
him up.
just thinking about it later, I was like, damn. And that is the first time that I have cried in, I want to say, 8 years.
Wow.
Not that I haven't felt like it. It's just literally nothing ever happened until then. And it was just like, wow. I mean, I wasn't sobbing. I wasn't like, ah!
Right. But that
But it was just,
tear of joy.
Yeah, music had been such a solitary thing that I had for so long that meeting these other people and being invited into a project such as Guitar Fight is just absolutely phenomenal. And now I've listened to so much Guitar Fight, I think you're probably in like the top 100 bands to have ever existed.
Yeah.
You know,
top
something crazy?
50 now that you're in it.
Yeah, oh yeah. When I was in high school, or when we were in high school and Guitar Fight started, I never once listened to Guitar Fight. I think I might have known the name. I knew there was a band. I think I might have known the name, but it's one of those names that if you hear it in passing, you're never going to remember it.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to, you'd have to sit down with one of us and be like, oh, it's really cool. I'll look it up right now, because that's normally how it goes if somebody's going to listen. Otherwise, they forget.
You have to be like, yeah, you
Guitar
can't have to push
Fridge
it.
from freaking Cowboy,
Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, Cowboy Bebop, Deftones.
Yeah.
Never remember it.
I guess that brings us to our next topic, and really the reason we wanted to start doing this is what are some struggles you've been through as a DIY musician and as a musician as a whole?
It all sucks, and I mean that in the most earnest way, the sweetest way I can say it. It's a sweet suck, right? It's a very bittersweet. You embrace how much it sucks because of a true unbridled passion for art. Music is an art, and I mean, every artist will tell you the same thing, that it's not very profitable, it's not always fulfilling, there's so many ups and downs, and music's no different.
I always tell people it's one of the most painful things you can willingly go through.
Yeah, absolutely. It is my best worst decision. Music has been my best worst decision because it is, I've really have truly been at some of the lowest points in my life during Guitar Fight's career, and also been at some of the highest, and that's just the risk that you accept. In fact, I wouldn't even say that music's like a steady, like happy level. I think it's more of like a steady, it kind of sucks, but you're kind of pushing just to get that touch of things are good for a little bit.
Before
things
it
are
goes
good for a
back
month.
down.
Yeah.
It's art. That's what
weird.
makes it art.
It's weird. I would say for me personally, some of the biggest struggles, obviously there's my family wasn't super supportive of the idea, and I'm not going to go super deep into all that because that doesn't, everyone's got their own different unique struggle, but that added a whole layer for me where my journey with music was not just I love music, it was also a means of proving myself. In fact, a lot of the work that I did for Guitar Fight, a lot of what I did, I'm the drummer, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, but my biggest job was arguably kind of managing, talking to people on Twitter, talking out deals with record labels, booking tours for the band, meeting people. I'm kind of like the designated PR guy, right?
It's a skill to have.
And it is a skill, but it's also absolutely mind-bogglingly miserable sometimes.
I bet.
But going back to the point I was trying to make, I felt like I had to prove myself. I had to prove myself to my family. I had to prove myself to myself. I just had to be something. Because after our first tour, I got kicked out of my house, or voluntarily chose to leave after a bad situation, and I was on my own. So it was either sink or swim, and I refused to sink. I absolutely refused. So Guitar Fight had to be something. Our album had to come out. We had to go on more tours. We had to gain more fans, right? And I didn't realize it at the time, because at the time I was just so driven. But what was driving me was not a passion for music. It was anger. It was fear of failure, and that got us to where we got. And I'm happy that I did it. But it's like, now I would never do that again. There's things that I've done for music I would never do again. There's things that I would go back and tell myself, like, dude, like, you're barely even a person. You are literally just this being that reads a person and then are just the person that person wants you to be. And that's how I made friends, and that's how I made, Guitar Fight fans, is just by being that guy. And, it just took more. It's the dark side of music, It's why successful musicians, even after they're successful, they're still miserable, because it's hard being someone you're not. And being
and once
a musician,
you've made who you're not your image, then it's really hard to change that.
Yeah. It is.
It's really hard to be happy with it.
It is. And especially, I've noticed, and this is why I'm comfortable never being like famous. This is why I'm comfortable never going on tour for 6 months out of the year. This is why I'm comfortable not making my living off of music anymore, is because I now know the toll. I now know what it takes. And I'm not willing to pay that price. At one point in my life, I thought I was willing to, but after I realized how much of my own personality I had betrayed to, try and make music my entire life, how much of myself I had lost, I was disgusted and I was sad once I realized it, and now I couldn't make myself do it again. And I think that, like I said, that's why I'm comfortable, because I can't go back to that. I don't care if you offered me a 6 month, like I said, 6 month tour deal, I'm gonna make $100,000. Like, I don't even know if I could do it, really.
Fuck it, I would.
No, and
I'd drag you.
No, and I completely understand. I just
I would kidnap you. I would kidnap you.
Music is fun because it's fun, and when you dedicate your entire personality to being what people want you to be, it no longer becomes about the music, and music is no longer fun. And I've also discovered that music is fun whether you have 100,000 monthly listeners or 10 monthly listeners. It can be fun either way. You'd be surprised how miserable you can be being so much bigger, because now there's so many more pressures. Whereas some of the happiest times for me, whenever I was working with Guitar Fight in the past, was whenever we were the smallest. Mm-hmm. Whenever we'd get together on a Friday night and just have a fun band practice, and whenever we were still anxious about the show that was only going to maybe have a 20-person turnout in Chattanooga, opening up for the Boomer Led Zeppelin band. Those were some of the most fun moments ever. And some of the biggest shows I've played, I don't even care about. Perspective changes the more you're in it, and the more time you really see the nitty-gritty side of music, Like I said, I'm saying things that 18-year-old, 19-year-old me would have been dumbfounded.
Would have scoffed at.
Yeah, like, God, what are you gonna? You're gonna like have a career. You're gonna work for the government. You're gonna be a firefighter. You're gonna have like insurance and stuff. Like,
you're gonna have a mustache.
That. Yeah, you're gonna have a mustache. You're gonna shave your hair. Like, old me would not recognize new me. But I'm happy for that. I'm proud of myself for that, because music, like I said, it'll take it all from you if you let it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'll stop ranting about that. I could go on all day.
No, it's totally cool.
What about you?
Yeah, for me, personal discovery. Finding a lot of stuff. I think a lot of similar things out about myself, but just in the sense of having no success has driven me to force myself to make these drastic changes to who I want to be, who I think I am, what I think I can be, and ultimately my end goal, which, as I said, was once world domination, the serpent's ritual, ruling the universe, is now just if I could possibly ever survive off of it, would be nice.
Right.
And I can feel it like a star going out in my brain, like a that it's now turning into something that if it can just rake me in a little bit of money will be my dream.
Right. The
And
expectations and goals start
Yeah.
to shrink a little bit
I've made
as time goes on.
I think $17 so far on music.
That's
And-
like
Yeah.
how many Travis whatever meals that is, dude. Travis Scott meals. That's like at
It's
least 3 or 4.
It's at least 2.
It's one Cardi B and Offset meal right there.
With the 2 fucking drinks or whatever it comes with.
Yeah, it's $14 by the way.
Are you serious?
You have $3 left over.
Get a Red Bull or something.
Yeah, you can get something to wash that garbage down with.
Yeah, it's just I mean, especially it just being me, it has been a very long and lonesome road of self-discovery and pushing away bad shit when it comes. It's I've almost done a lot of really stupid shit because I've let my own inflated ego take control of myself and be really unhappy with what's going on around me. And man, that's just a really dangerous thing to do. You kind of have to kick your ass in that moment. You have to be like, dude, fuck you.
Yeah.
And as much as that hurts to do, to really fight yourself, it's like, why the fuck am I doing it? To make caveman riffs?
Right.
Like,
Right.
what's the point in it? And I think that's what makes it art, is going through that struggle for it.
Right.
Is the dichotomy between, oh, this is awesome, and those highs you get when you are proud of yourself, and the lows you get when every time it seems to go lower and lower than ever before. And I think that's a completely normal thing to go through. And I think it's human for whatever reason, but it's just sad because so many times I've thought, nobody ever talks about this. I've never seen an interview with someone I look up to that's been like, yeah, when you start out, it's going to fucking hurt. When you first start doing this, it's going to be very painful. I've never really heard that. And I think that's one of the reasons I've been wanting to do a show like this for so long, is because I realize now there are millions and millions of people just like me all over that would like, or at least deserve to hear this and hear what it's like to go through and know that you are not alone in going through this.
Right.
And that it's totally normal, at least possibly normal. Influences have always helped me a lot, but in the same vein, most of your influences are the people who have made it, and to whatever that means to you. And to realize that they don't talk about this also makes you wonder, have these people gone through this? And that can very easily turn into jealousy. It can turn into anger. It can be like, oh, I can't listen to this band anymore because it just pisses me off whenever I do.
Right.
That's a really great way to lose an influence and lose something that makes you happy. And that's just not fun. But a very long, lonesome road of having to find out all these things and so far get nothing in return from music has been very painful, but in a lot of ways I'm thankful for it.
Right.
Because I'm pretty damn humble about it. And honestly, that's the way I want to be, and that's the part of myself that I really want to show people. You know, it's hurt a lot, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. You
Yeah.
know, I don't want anybody to think that the Serpent's Ritual has always just been this mad lad riffing out in his basement or anything. It's a sad lad.
Yeah, a sad lad
Sad
riffing
lad,
out in
yeah.
the basement.
Yeah.
Well, and to go off that a little bit, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, not as in, Guitar Fight super successful or anything, but as a band who has reached more success than we ever anticipated, it doesn't change much. The emotions that you talk about don't really change that much. In fact, when you hit a lot of those milestones that, at one point you would have thought would change your life, you start to realize that, it's even harder than you thought. We have 30,000? I don't know exactly, but around 30,000 monthly listeners
It's like
right now.
33,000.
Yeah, for a band that's been around 5 years, like that's not too bad. We started out with 6, so yeah, of course that's awesome, but that's not really that life changing. Like at first you think, if I had that, God, like that would be crazy, and then you get it, and it's cool because yeah, it means people do like your music, but I'm still living my life day to day how I'm living it. I'm still going into work. I'm still, struggling how I'm struggling. I'm still struggling to write riffs. I'm still struggling to even want to do music in the first place because the motivation has to come from in here. If you're completely motivated off the idea you have of what success is, you will always be disappointed. Now I love music because I love music. I play guitar fight shows because I like playing drums with my friends. Yeah, it helps that we make just a tad bit of money. Yeah, it helps that there's people there having fun. But I've started to realize that I could do it to 20 people and have just as much fun. If you can just accept that the numbers don't matter, that the strategic goals you have set probably won't be reached, and even when you do reach goals you never thought you'd reach, or even if you plan to reach them, it doesn't really matter because it still comes down to you and your relationship with yourself and your relationship with music. Not the exterior, accolades, not the pats on the backs after shows. All that you forget, and it gets old, and it gets unexciting, and sleeping on basements gets old, and having 6 people come up to you after your show, like, yeah, it's cool at first, but after a week of doing it, it kind of gets old, and, I think more people need to realize that, like I said, just the love, if you want to do music forever, you'll do it if you truly love it, and if you truly love yourself deep down. If you've got your shit figured out on that regard, that's what's going to last. That is what's going to be chronic.
Hey, chronic, man.
Chronic, yeah. Whereas if, like I said, if you're just chasing the high of the next big goal, or the next, your next album release, or your next show, like if that's the high you're chasing, like it's fleeting.
That is a good way to hurt your relationship with music.
Yes, it will destroy it. It will destroy it because you'll play your biggest show and you'll suck. You'll start to meet all these fans who love your band and realize that maybe they're kind of annoying. Yeah, no offense, but it happens. You'll, think you're going to make a bunch of money because 700 people were there, and then you get paid enough to, make it home. And no one tells you that shit. Everyone's like, you just got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And yes, you do got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, but you got to push because you want to push, not because you want the accolades, not because you want the perceived success, because all of those things, like I said, are fleeting.
And it's hard to blame people almost for being naive in this sense because it's so romanticized and so much media as this amazing thing you go through. And while it definitely can be, it's also like you definitely better not expect it to be this phenomenal thing to go through because it's gonna do you one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. On either spectrum. That's I kind of lost my point a little bit, but on either spectrum, whether it's making albums down here in your basement to how many monthly listeners?
17.
Currently? To 17. Right? Working
Which
really
honestly
hard.
Feels really fucking good.
Right.
And at this moment, it's like...
Exactly, and that's something, and that's what I'm trying to get the point across for people to realize is that whether it's the 17 monthly listeners or the 30,000 monthly listeners and shows and tours and sold out audiences, it doesn't matter. The struggle stays the same. The internal struggle never leaves. The pressure to always want to be better will always be there. So it's about how you handle it and your relationship, again, with yourself. And that's kind of the point I want to get across, that it's just whatever metric you're at, it doesn't matter. The people with 100,000 monthly listeners go through shitty things, want to quit music sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Because if that weren't the case, why would they break up? You know what I mean? There's Periphery, for example. They've got 200,000 or 300,000 monthly listeners. Invented the genre gent, in quotation marks.
Actually, that was
Meshuggah. And but even them, they say they barely make enough money. They say they make enough money to go on their tours and then have some chump change afterwards.
Yeah.
And their chump change sure might be $5,000, which to some people might be a lot, but $5,000 for 200,000 monthly listeners. You know what I mean? Just people don't realize.
Well, split 5 ways. Now, if this was the Serpent's Ritual we're talking about.
$5,000. $5,000. That's a fucking 2001 Honda Taurus.
Yeah, man.
Ford Taurus right there.
Honda Taurus.
Honda Subaru. A Dodge 4Runner.
That was like me flubbing up, was it modern? What did I say? Modern Football or something the other day.
Oh, yeah. You're like, what's that one band you guys talk about? Or they're like one of the big famous Midwest bands, modern football. It's like you're close.
You're close to two of them, but
Yeah,
not
you're close
quite.
to two. You're close to two.
Yeah, it's and it's fucked up. Art's fucked up, and honestly, you know what I think a big issue is? I really think streaming services should pay artists just a smidgen more, just a little bit more.
I agree. I just don't think it'll ever happen. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, are hell bent on like Spotify, pay more, all this. And I'm not disagreeing. I think, absolutely they should. But the amount of faith I have in big corporations to do what is probably fair, especially when it comes to something so volatile like art,
Yeah.
there's no faith there.
Yeah.
And I don't think it'll really ever change, and I don't think it'll change a substantial amount if it does change, and I think that everyone should just accept that it is the way it is, and it sucks, and that's part of it. And really, if you fucking, like I said, if you want to get rich off this shit, you need to be on TikTok, becoming an influencer, and then having some shitty producer make music for you.
Definitely do not be playing progressive metal.
Don't play prog metal. Don't get into Midwest emo, because the biggest Midwest emo bands have 100,000 monthly listeners, which is awesome. Shout out to those bands. It's hard work, but even then, they'll probably tell you the same shit. They're not fucking living in a $1,500 apartment by themselves, living off streaming money, working no job. No, they're probably all still working, or they're literally grinding so hard at music that they, are probably working 40, 50, 60 hours a week just doing music.
Yeah.
Which is still fucking hard, I wouldn't want to do music for 40, 50, 60 hours a week.
It would make me hate it.
Yeah, I'd hate music. So,
I'd be like, man, fuck this.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, shit, I totally forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's not like in the music videos where there's all these parties going on. There's all these sexy people doing shit and beer and stuff. It's not really like that. It's just a music video. Now it's totally okay to get into music for the money. Why you would ever think that that's a really lucrative thing to do, I don't know, but it's totally okay.
You're a bad businessman.
You're a bad businessman. Yeah, something got
person.
fucked up in numbers along the way. It's totally okay to just do it for music, but you have to be realistic about it, and you might have to play things that you don't really want to play. And you might have to get really into what are the current trends and stuff. And just in the same vein, it's completely okay to play music just because you want to play music.
Right.
There's
right.
Not one is not better than the other. One is a lot easier to make you happy than the other. But really, it's the same thing, pretty much.
Just a couple small points for the people coming up. Like I said, I speak from no real authority because, 30,000 monthly listeners, that's cool, but that's my ceiling, right? So I can't tell you how to get huge or anything like that. And a lot of it is the music, and a lot of it is who you know, and that's just part of it, right? But just a couple points I can give to the people who, want to market their music. Again, going back to everything I said earlier, if the milestones are all you care about, you're not going to make it long. So again, I give these recommendations, I want to help you, but I don't let these consume you. Don't let, hear this advice and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And, I want to hit all these milestones now, because it still probably won't happen. Right. But for the people coming up, just a couple small things. Social media is sadly your best friend. I mean that wholeheartedly. It is. That's it. There's bands that I think are absolute dog shit that rule the world because they have good social media presence, because they're, they post TikTok videos, whatever. If you never get started on social media, you can't expect, something magic to happen. Now, can magic happen? Yes. But does magic happen often? No.
That's why it's called magic.
That's why it's called magic. Exactly. So for the people coming up, learn how to use Twitter, learn how to use Facebook, find a Facebook group or something, get an Instagram and post and share, and you gotta put the other bands you play with in your story and all this stuff. That's just how you make connections, dog. You have to do it. You have to do it. If you're anticipating on growing, it's necessary.
You know what I wonder about that?
What?
I've been really wanting to get into marketing my shit. Do people still use hashtags?
Yes.
I never fucking see them.
It depends in the context. So, I would not use a hashtag on Instagram, for example, because based off our genre of music, what am I gonna do? Hashtag fucking Midwest emo.
Hashtag guitar fight from Fooly Cooley.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Tags that, on Instagram, for example, not many people are looking at. Now, when you get to TikTok, hashtags are really important because TikTok kind of is just the new center of social media. And
As unfortunate
as
that may
unfortunate
be.
as yeah, absolutely. I despise TikTok. I have it, but I still despise it. But that's where your hashtags are really going to come into play because yeah, people are on Midwest emo TikTok. There are people on metal and progressive metal TikTok. There's a TikTok, community for just about anything you could think of. It's more so play a show and then like I said, tag the bands and then follow the bands and see if some of them follow you back and then maybe they'll post you in their story and then maybe somebody will like what they hear and you just do it and you do it and you do it and sometimes it results in nothing and sometimes you get a few more followers, but it's a very slow process, right?
Oh yeah.
My other little point, this is my last little point and I'll shut the hell up. Playing local is great, but can only take you so far. So for the people out there who
Or in the boomer Led Zeppelin cover band.
Yeah, who have a scene, but your scene's full of boomer Led Zeppelin cover bands or whatever the hell it may be. Just keep in mind that unless you live in a huge city with huge communities for just about every genre, like your Philadelphia, your New York, whatever. If you're not in an area like that, you're a town, say like sub 100, 200,000, or maybe it's just, you live in the South like we do and nobody really goes to damn shows. You can't play local forever. And sometimes you're going to have to go play that shitty tour. Sometimes you're going to have to lose $1,000 to go on the road for a week. It's part of it. It's part of it. And you'll be amazed. You'll make fans and friends and, you'll have a time of your life. But if you're not willing to lose money and you're not willing to spend your time doing this shit, you'll never get anything out of it. I think that's a huge part is your social media, and then you have to get out there. People have to see you. You have to go tour in these cities. You have to, play in places. Know your genre. Where do people live who like the genre of music you play? Where are the hot spots? Where will people come out? Where are potential places that you can open up for someone a little bit bigger than you? Not huge, but just a little bit bigger. Because if you're playing with bands that are just a little bit bigger than you, you'll get bigger. You'll find your audience. And then you'll play with bands that are a little bit bigger than them and them and them and so on, right?
Until you are the biggest
Until
band.
you are the big band. That's how it rolls, You can't just play with bands smaller than you all the time. And when you're playing local, a lot of times that is the case. You're playing with the bands on the same level as you, and there's like 20 to 40 to 50 people who just come out because they're bored. But that's not going to shoot your career forward. Back in the day, you played in a city at a bar, and someone who, works for a record label was there and
pull
took
out their
notice.
cigar and be like, hey,
these
young boys.
guys are good. Yeah. Now, it's not like that anymore. Everything's social media, and everything's just about getting out there. And the fact that big record labels nowadays, they're looking for bands who are self-sufficient, who already have a social media presence established, who already can go on their own tours, who make their own merchandise, because, progressively over the years, labels have gotten more and more geared towards assisting rather than doing everything for you.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a smaller band, you want to sell yourself, be like, hey, we could just, use the exposure from being thrown on a big tour with maybe one of your bands, since we're similar genres of music. And we can do all of our merch ourselves, and we can do all this ourselves. We can do all this other shit ourselves. And they're like, oh, so we don't even have to front you a bunch of money. You can just go on this tour. You got to make yourself an asset. And if you're a band who's just like, yeah, we got good music, but we don't know how to do anything, that's a liability. That's a band that's going to probably end up being more work than it's worth for a bigger record label, and people have to keep that in mind.
That makes sense.
So, and a lot of people don't think about that. They're just like, your music's awesome and you get lucky and that's the only way you get signed. No, it's, you put in the work and you run ads on social media and you talk to people and you make connections and you go to shows even when your band's not playing and you talk to people, and it's a bitch. Yeah. But it's what you got to do. And that's it. That's my little bit of advice for the people who might be in my shoes or Sid's shoes, whatever shoes you're in. If you're trying to,
even if they're not your own shoes.
Yeah, even if you're not wearing shoes, if you're walking around barefoot, this is still for you.
Watch where you step, though.
Watch where you step. I actually walk barefoot pretty much everywhere.
Really?
Whenever it warms up, yeah.
Those fucking plants that are flat and they have the spikes
all over them.
Oh
yeah, those suck.
Those suck. Fucking terrible.
But yeah, that's all my points. I really don't have anything else that I would want to go over. That's kind of how I wanted to end things with, hey, stay hopeful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's always
Keep hope alive, because there always is
Yep.
magic.
Yep. There always is magic. There always is. And I've always believed too that nothing just comes to you. You could work for 10 years and then boom, something magic happened. You could, work really hard for a week and then something awesome happened. You know what I mean? But if you never started working, if you never started investing time, then you can't expect to get an investment, because music is probably the biggest. I've invested more time into music than anything else, And
Me too.
It's got me, where it's got me. And some people it takes longer, some people it never happens, and some people it takes way sooner than even it took for us, right? But you gotta look at it like that. It's an investment, and the more time you invest, you gotta think one day it's gonna pay off. One day you're gonna get that investment back. One day practicing guitar every day is gonna mean something. It's gonna change something for you. But if you quit, you'll never see it.
Yeah.
Hell, maybe you never got a payoff. Maybe you never got a return, but you'll never see it if you quit.
And so many people won't make it past that first failure.
Yep, disappointment or whatever.
Disappointment, that 1,000th. So either keep doing it or get into chaos magic. That's about probably the only two things you can do. Is
pick up crocheting.
Yeah, that too. That's probably more lucrative right now than music is.
I would say just about everything.
I bet you know what? I bet we just ruined somebody's fucking dreams. So all the kids listen to this.
No,
it's
the truth.
God.
Hell, I could take a shit on a fucking whiteboard and put it up in an art museum.
Yeah.
Make more money than I would playing music right now. Everything is more lucrative, but that's why it's fun.
That is why it's fun. It's definitely a risk, though.
Yeah.
But if you've made it this far, then you're probably the type of person that's gonna keep doing it. But we could be wrong. We'll talk a little bit about the future of the show. I gotta pee like really bad.
No, you're good. You're good.
So we're wanting at some point in the future. Now I gotta figure out a little bit with hardware stuff. Definitely, most likely virtual interviews, but we're wanting to have interviews with other people, get their 2 cents on what it's like just being in the industry or whatnot, whatever you may call it. Including bands, notable figures, anything. Really, at this point, anybody who will come on. Also, expect possibly an episode each month. Could be less, could be more than that. I don't know. This is the most relevant video to this, but I have something on my YouTube channel, which you are most likely listening to this on. I don't know where else you would find it on. There is, in the description of the channel, something called The Promise. And that promise is if you are a relatively unknown musician, then you are most likely an underrated musician. And if you send me an album of your making, I will listen to it and get back to you on it, or even make a video reviewing it. All good shit. I'm not going to shit on somebody's album. So that still stands. And if you are a musician like that, then hit us up and we would love to get you on. But, spots are filling up pretty fast. We got a pretty busy schedule. We got Dr. Phil coming on next week. We got a feature-length Trebled Folks movie coming out next year with the Marvel Universe. It's tied in with that, the Secret Wars. But yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. You have anything you want to add on there?
Don't give up. And if you give up, I don't really give a shit.
That's fucking awesome. That's badass.
Just do what makes you happy. When it stops making you happy, quit.
Yeah.
That's it.
That is
That's all
honestly really good advice. When it stops making you happy, stop doing it. Yeah, stay tuned till next time, and we'll see what's what.
Trebled Folks. Trebled Folks.
Fucking Jesus. Hell yeah.